Hey everybody, this is Wally. Boy, it's been a while since I've actually talked to anybody over a podcast or a talk or anything like that where I wasn't live. So, wanted to get back in the chair and talk about something that I've been working on a bunch, and that is iPhone development for .NET and C Sharp developers. So, we're going to walk through that. Just a little background information on who I am. I've done some iPhone development work over the last year, done Ajax, ASP.NET, blah, 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 blah. Um, One comment about the talk that you're about to see is that my mileage may vary during the course of this talk. Um, MonoTouch, Mono development, which are the products that you're going to see here, are actually released products. I'm working on various flavors of alpha and beta versions, as I've got documented here. So, we may have a little problem during my talk. These products actually do work. You know, Please be kind on this. So, first off, recently, Apple has changed the licensing for the iPhone and the SDK and those products. And I want to touch on that and what that means and a little bit of background. So, right now, products that aren't Objective-C for native applications and JavaScript for web-based applications are in a little bit of there's this gray area because Apple's got this new licensing. You probably have heard a lot of discussion about this and a lot of people uh, pontificating on what it means. Basically, there's an updated section of their licensing, section 3.3.1, which basically says that if you're a native application, you've got to be originally written in either C, Objective C, and I believe C++. Um, if you're a web-based application, then you can only access APIs exposed by JavaScript. So, and what is the background on that? And it's interesting. If you're a .NET developer, you're geared towards thinking about developers are the focus of the Microsoft world. They spend a lot of time working to developers, and so .NET developers are very used to that scenario. Apple has a different view of the world. Apple is a company that is very consumer friendly, very consumer focused, and they believe that if they take care of the consumer, the developers will follow. And it's a different mindset. I'm not trying to get into which is better or worse. It's just that's the mindset and that's the difference. So for right now, that has put a number of products into this gray area. What's going to happen, and right now a lot of people don't know. What's going to happen with Flash? What's going to happen with MonoTouch? What's going to happen with Unity? What's going to happen with PhoneGap? There's a lot of questions right now, and not a whole lot of really good solid answers. So I just want to bring that up. That's an issue. So now we're going to get into the meat of the talk. So where are we at? We are an increasingly mobile people. Okay, we're out, we're on the go, we're traveling. We have families that travel. We have businesses that will send us on our to Iowa, to Omaha, to wherever. So we're very mobile, and laptops aren't always convenient for that. I know my laptop that I use for most of my development work, from the time I turn it on to the time it's up and actually going, it takes a while. Laptops really aren't necessarily convenient. When was the last time you dragged your desktop out? So, that's an issue. Power management. How much power your devices use is a big deal. If I'm not connected to a power outlet, my laptop is dead within about an hour and a half. So, that's not, necessarily the best thing. If I've got to sit and work and I'm working on something, I don't have power, and all of a sudden my laptop shuts off. So, that Power is important. Wi-Fi is not everywhere. There are a lot of publicly available Wi-Fi hotspots. However, not every location has one, and a lot of locations that have them, you actually have to pay to get access to them. If you're sitting in a major airport, chances are you're going to have to pay to get on their Wi-Fi. So, you know, you don't have internet access everywhere you go. You have internet access in a lot of places you go. You know, I know my mobile phone, I've got it, but then how do I get it on my laptop? How do I do all this? You know, these are issues. So the mobile phone, the mobile device, as an interface into a lot of resources, is becoming a increasingly popular scenario. And when we look at those mobile devices, right now, the iPhone has the largest mind share, and from an economic standpoint, it has by far the largest market share of any mobile device. The iPhone and its cousins, the iPad and even the iPod Touch, just have this tremendous amount of economic market share and mind share about them. Then also, you know, if you're listening to this talk, you're probably a .NET developer, and .NET, the .NET framework is the most popular development framework platform. So, you know, that's kind of where we're at, and then kind of the question becomes, how do we get into, you know, how do we meld all that? You know, how does we as .NET framework developers, how do we get on the iPhone? How does that happen? So, you know, a couple more thoughts on why we want to be on the iPhone. You know, think about all those people who have gone and, you know, stood in line at either an Apple store or AT&T store or wherever to get a device. I remember when the device first came out, there were people literally, you know, I remember it was a Friday, there were people literally standing outside of a line. They must have been 100 deep at 7 p.m. on a Friday trying to get an iPhone. I was like, what are those crazy fools doing? I mean, it's just a phone. But, you know, there's a lot of people who want that device. So historically, where are we at on the iPhone? In 2007, the iPhone was first introduced. It had the ability to run web applications over the Safari mobile browser. Unless you jailbroke your iPhone or your iPod Touch, you couldn't run applications natively on the device that weren't included with it. And then in 2008, the iPhone 3G was introduced. It had the ability to run web applications as well as native applications, and that was a big step forward. Apple they listened to developers who said, hey, we want to run applications natively on the device. You know, how do we do that? So they came up with an SDK and a mechanism to do that, which is called the App Store, which I'm sure everybody's familiar with. Then in 2009, the next generation iPhone came out, which included our ability to run web applications through mobile Safari, included the ability to run native applications on the device, and it had the iPhone 3.0 operating system on which a lot of other things they've done are based on. In 2010, at this point, Apple has introduced the iPad. I believe starting next week, Apple will most likely introduce a fourth generation iPhone at their developer conference. So within a few days, this slide would need to be updated. But, you know, for right now, that's, you know, kind of the basics of where we're at. Another interesting piece about the iPad, it's the first form factor that's different than the iPhone. So it's got a different screen size. It's got, you know, different pieces of functionality in it. So I think that was really a watershed event for Apple, that they've got a new device that still is compatible with, you know, the thousands, the tens of thousands of applications that they have. Couple other thoughts. Apple is right now they're listed as the number 3 smartphone provider as far as units shipped behind Symbian and Research in Motion. And then they have a great marketing line. There's an app for that. That is just it's a great line. And I think there really is an app for just about everything that you could want to do on the iPhone that makes sense. So what are some strategies to get on the iPhone that I've looked at? Because just a little background, I started in April of 2009. I was like, I was talking to people and the iPhone kept coming up and the iPhone kept coming up. And, I was like, how can I get on the iPhone? How can I take the knowledge that I already have in my mind, even though that knowledge is probably fairly small, and build something to get on the iPhone? And so, the first thing I looked at is, what about a web application running on the iPhone? And, I was like, hey, that's a good strategy. I wanted to look at something a little bit more native on the iPhone. So I looked at, I can build something in Objective-C, but that didn't really appeal to me because I would have to take my existing knowledge, or I couldn't take my existing knowledge, and really apply that. I mean, I've done C development for a long time, and Objective-C, I was too far down the Microsoft path with C#, really to want to make that switch. So first thing I looked at was PhoneGap. PhoneGap is a JavaScript framework, but allows you to build native applications. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. And so I started down that path, and then I read a press release. MonoTouch was going to be introduced from Novell, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's really what I want. I want to be able to take my existing C# .NET knowledge and apply that to the iPhone. I was like, wow, that is, for me as a developer, that is a great strategy. That's a great way to get on the iPhone. And then there are other ways. I'm not going to belittle them. I just don't have them listed out. But there are other ways. There's Aptanium. There's, I believe, a Row Mobile, and then some other products that would allow you to get onto the iPhone, and they're kind of a cross-compiler kind of mechanisms. I haven't looked at them a whole lot, but they do exist. So you want to make sure that when you are looking at a strategy to get on the iPhone, you examine what's available out there, and then figure out what works best